Hey everyone, Dr. Andy Barlow here, and this is going to be a three-part series with our cerebellum. Last week we talked about there were three lobes of the cerebellum divided by two fissures, and it's the primary fissure that separates the floccular nodular lobe from the rest of the cerebellum. Then you have the anterolateral fissure that separates the floccular nodular lobe from the rest of the cerebellum, and the primary fissure which separates the posterior lobe from the anterior lobe. Today we want to talk about the floccular nodular lobe and how do you test this. Then we're going to move into the vermis and paravermis, and then also the dentate nucleus on how to test this. And don't forget, next week you need to make sure you're here, tell all of your friends, because we're going to go through how we actually treat these different systems. So actually what I have up here, these are the eye movements that are actually linked to the right cerebellum. So in the right, the presynaptic pool to the right cerebellum there's several things, but tonight, since we're talking about the floccular nodular lobe, it would be the anterior lobe on the right, the posterior lobe on the right, and the horizontal canal on the right. So the way we would want to test this, if we actually, just think of it like this, if we actually take our thumb, fixate on it, and flex forward, we see that our eyes reflexogenically go up. So the anterior canals here, got one on the right, one on the left. When we flex forward, our eyes reflexogenically go up. And when we tilt our head back, our eyes reflexogenically go down. So the easiest way to start with this, for this right horizontal canal that's presynaptic to the right cerebellum, if we fixate on our thumb and then we turn our head to the right, when we do this, we see that our eyes actually go in the opposite direction, or they go to the left when we're stimulating this right horizontal canal, which is stimulating the right cerebellum. That's the easy part. Okay, so when we actually want to fire this right anterior canal, if you think about the right SCM and the right scalenes, the anterior, middle, and posterior, when those things actually activate, you actually laterally flex and rotate to the contralateral side. So there are several different ways that we can actually activate this. One is just think of it like you're dumping water out of your right ear while you fixate. So it'd be like this. So if you look like I'm trying to dump water out of this ear and then push it down and to the right, what happens with this, you'll notice that my eyes go up and to the right. So recap, if I stimulate my right horizontal canal, my eyes go to the left. And if I activate my right SCM, if you will, or I'm trying to dump water out of my right ear, boom, okay, I'm activating this right anterior canal. Now our eyes go up and to the right and then down into the left. Okay, if we think about it like this, if you know your anatomy and you got the splenius capitis, splenius cervicis on the left side, what will happen is we're going to laterally flex. We're going to laterally flex to the right and rotate to the right, and our eyes actually go down and to the left. Okay, so another way of doing this is I'm going to take my ear and I'm going to dump water out of my ear over my shoulder. So that's down and to the left, whatever way you need to learn it. But here's the thing, you have to test for this, because the way we build a neurological case is that we start with the oldest, which is the floccular nodular lobe and eye movements, and we move up to the vermis, paravermis, and dentate nucleus. So the floccular nodular lobe is your spine and eyes. Fish have this as well. This is called the lateral swim line. So if you think of fish, we're thinking of eyes and spine, or spine and eyes. Okay, so let's look at the left horizontal canal. The left horizontal canal, if we rotate our head to the left while we fixate on our thumb, we see that our eyes reflexogenically go to the right. So we have a left anterior canal. So the left anterior canal, if we activate our left SCM, anterior, middle, and posterior scalenes, what will happen when we do this, we're actually going to laterally flex to the left, flex, and then rotate to the right, okay, in this position. Or in other words, you're going to dump water out of your left ear forward like this, boom. And if you do this correctly, your eyes are going to go up and to the left. And then again, for the posterior canal back here, okay, we got to get this posterior canal in gravity. So if we actually activate our left splenius capitis splenius cervicis in this situation, what we would do is we will extend, laterally flex to the left, rotate to the left while in extension, and we can see our eyes go down and to the right. Another way of saying that is we're just going to take water and we're going to dump it out out of our left ear over our left shoulder, eyes go down and to the right. So when I'm doing this with the patient, what we would do when we test this, okay. So what we would want to do with the patient is real simple. Part of the testing is follow my finger, okay, and you should be able to follow my finger and track it and stay on pace with it. This is called a gain of 1 to 1. Okay, so the eyes, if this is the patient, the eyes should be tracking like this. And if the eyes come off target, if we come off target up and to the left, we know that that's a left anterior canal that needs to be stimulated, which fires to the left cerebellum, and the left cerebellum fires to the right brain. So if you connect the dots, we actually see how we can help these people with these problems. So let's change gears here and let's go from the floccular nodular lobe, and then we're going to go to the what is called the vermis and the paravermis. Now, one of the things with the vermal region that controls your spine, and you can get people with what's called essential tremors, and this is a genetic problem, and you see them and they're shaking their head like this. And so we've had incredible results with this, with our regenerative therapy that we've done, getting people getting their inflammation under control. But nevertheless, this essential tremors is what we need to look for. So for that, that's going to be a midline cerebellum genetic problem. So what we want to do with patients to test the floccular nodular lobe and the globus and emboliform, which is in our vermis and paravermis, we'll have a patient. Now, in my clinic, very few people can stand up and close their eyes. I market to a lot of chronically ill people. So if you have to, you can just have them sit down. So what we want to do is we want to have them take their finger. I'm going to say, take your hands, put them out in front of you. I'm going to touch one of your fingers, and I'm actually going to touch the little finger. The reason the little finger is it has the one of the smallest, not the smallest, or I guess I could say the least amount of somatotopic representation in the brain. So I don't really want to pick on the thumb and the index finger because they have a lot of sensory input into the brain. So we're going to pick on that little finger, touch that, and I want you to put the tip of your finger on the tip of your nose. Okay, this should be a fluid movement, and you need to make sure as a doctor you can do this, because believe it or not, patients will actually call you on this. Not all of them, but some of them will. And so another test that you can do is just have a patient say, stick your hands out in front of you to the side, and then what I want you to do is I want to see if you can actually put your fingertip to fingertip. Okay. So when we're looking at this, we're looking at proprioceptive input, muscle spindles, and tendon organs. Proprioception is where your limbs are in space. So I should be able to close my eyes and put my finger on the tip of my nose. Now, what we're looking at here, I'm turning to the side for a reason, kind of at an oblique angle. The trajectory should be smooth, okay? And we're not going to go over basal ganglion this tonight, but anyway, we're going to be covering that at some point. So if it's too slow, that could be a basal ganglion. If it's too fast, it can also be a different part of the basal ganglion that's causing this system to malfunction. But what we're looking at from a cerebellar standpoint, one is, do we have hypometria? Okay, are we stopping too soon? And then are we having hypermetria, which means I'm actually literally like smashing my nose into my face. I've had people actually almost like hit their eye. If they do that, that's more of a parietal lobe problem than a cerebellar issue. And we'll go through that when we get to the parietal lobe in future seminars. So here we go. Recap: hypometria, hypermetria. Okay. You have breakdown where it's like this. You have a patient, they're trying to find where their nose is. Okay, I'm exaggerating slightly, but you will have people they don't know where their nose is. They can't find it. And then the last one is going to be a terminal tremor. Okay, where when you get closer to the end of the range of motion, you have a terminal tremor. Now, these people will also, more than likely, they may pick things up and they see that they're trimming. When they're writing, their penmanship may be really sloppy. You have what is called micrographia, which means that when you start writing and then the words get smaller and smaller, that's a cerebellar problem. You have macrographia, where they get bigger and bigger, and that's actually could be a basal ganglion problem. So let's recap real quick. So we've got the oldest part of the cerebellum, which is the floccular nodular lobe. We're going to test this literally by saying, I want you to follow my finger, and we're going to follow this with a horizontal canal, okay? And we're going to go up left, down right. We're going to do that about 3 times to see if they fatigue, okay? And then up right, down left. Now, the patient's actually looking at me. You can see their happy, smiley face in their nose. So up right, down left, okay? If they come off target, you don't, just go, okay, you missed that, and you can go back and look to see, is this a right anterior canal, right posterior canal, right horizontal, what is it? And then the rehab we'll be going over next week, but you need to do this test on everybody that comes into your clinic. We also need to tell a patient we're going to be looking at your cerebellum, and we want you to put your finger on the tip of your nose, okay? That's the cerebellar test. And then also what we want to do is we want to do these alternating movements, okay? Because the cerebellum controls, let me put this over here, controls and coordinates movement, okay? And we want to see, can they actually turn these muscles on and turn them off, okay? The next one that we want to do is, I call it rock, paper, knife. So this is also a coordinated type of movement where I tell the patient, I can't actually demonstrate it like I would in the clinic, because I would be sitting down in front of the patient, and it would be, what I want you to do is I want you to do rock, paper, knife, and I want you to repeat that. Because again, part of the job of the cerebellum is to control eye movement. I call it EABC, eyes, accuracy, balance, and coordination. Are you coordinated? Can your cerebellum turn on and turn off muscle groups? Okay. And again, this is testing on a lot of areas, but tonight we're just talking about the cerebellum. Can you turn on and turn off muscle groups, okay, when you do this? So this is actually testing the right cerebellum, because I'm using my right hand. This is also testing the motor cortex on the left side, supplemental motor cortex, premotor cortex, prefrontal cortex, basal ganglion, direct and indirect pathway. So see what you're missing by not coming to my seminars is these pathways. So you're just at one simple test. We're just seeing, hey, does the cerebellum on the right and all of these structures that are associated with it, are they working together? Because each one of these areas of the brain, if they're malfunctioning, then it's going to show up on this with this motor control. Okay, can you do this? We're going to do it on the right and left as well. They need to repeat that. So you need to make sure you can do that, because they're going to go, hey, doc, can you do this yourself? Okay, so here with these arm movements, all of these arm movements, we're dealing with what is called the vermis paravermis, because we're testing the spine, and we're testing the paravermis, or what is called the globus and emboliform, is the deep cerebellar nuclei there. So let's recap on this real quick. So patient's going to put their hand out in front of them. You're going to have them put their finger on the tip of the nose. We're going to test for hypometria, hyperemetria. Do they have this breakdown, this kind of oscillation, like they don't know where their nose is? Are they completely missing their nose? Or do we have this terminal tremor at the end, because this is the dentate nuclear problem? Now, the next test that we're going to do for the cerebellum is we're actually going to have them put their feet together. Now, in this situation, again, the standard test position on this is to have your feet together and your hands on your hips. All right. So each person, when you do this, they should actually be able to hold this position for 15 seconds. Now, the reason I do this test, the Rumbergs, and I don't have them put their feet together and close their eyes, because most people can't even do just the standing part. So I'm literally like sitting right in front of them in my exam stool. Okay, they're going to step away from the exam table. Okay, so if they fall back, they're going to fall into the exam table. If they fall forward, they're going to fall into me, so I'll catch them. And then if they fall to the right or left, I have my hands up here, so they'll make sure that they don't fall to the left or to the right. So we're going to have the patient put their feet together, and they're going to close their eyes. So here, hands on their hips, they should be able to hold this position for 15 seconds. Now here's what happens. And I'm going to count out loud. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi, all the way to 15. Now if they fall to the right, then they should be able to hold that position for 15 seconds. Okay. And so, see, this is a way that we can actually do a re-exam. When we do a re-exam, it's like, well, Miss Jones, when you came in, you actually failed to the right at 4 seconds. Okay. Now, the way we start looking at this and analyzing this is when you come, I wouldn't say an expert, but when you become really good at doing this. Let's say that this person comes off when we're looking at the patient, and I come off with my eyes up and to the right. We know that the right anterior canal is abnormally functioning. And then when a person starts to close their eyes, we're going to notice that they start to sway into this right anterior field, because this anterior field is decreased in its function, and then this posterior canal is actually pushing the person into this deficiency. If I have a right horizontal canal that's damaged, then I'm going to lean more toward the right side. If my right posterior canal is damaged or decreasing its function, and it can be decreasing in function because of head trauma, blood sugar dysregulation, inflammation, autoimmunity, the list goes on, but we'll fall back into the right. Now, don't forget, if people have peripheral neuropathy, they can't feel their feet, so they're going to be falling all over the place. Okay, so that has to be fixed. But the feet are presynaptic to your cerebellum, because your cerebellum has to control where are your feet, okay, where are your eyes, and then where are your canals in your ear. And if all of those match up, then we can stand here, like a statue. But if they don't match up, then we start swaying all over the place. And this is why people get vertigo as well, is because, see, vertigo, your cerebellum is trying to match up what your feet are doing with your eyes, with your ears. And if there's a mismatch in that, like, for example, when I was in high school in the band, I was in a bus, and there was a bus on this side blocking my field, bus on this side blocking the field, and then this bus over here on this side started to move forward just a little bit, and it's like, whoa, what just happened? Then I realized the bus was moving. But see, what happened is my feet were telling my cerebellum, you're not moving. My canal was saying you're looking straight ahead, but my visual field said that something was moving. So see, that's where you get that vertigo. Now, the next thing that we're going to do for our Rumbergs is we're going to do tandem Rumberg. Now, if you think of this, we're going to put our right foot in front of our left foot, heel to toe. Now, if you think about this, when you have your left foot in the back, think of it like you're going to raise your right leg 90 degrees. So we got all of our weight on our left foot, okay, which means that we're actually stimulating the left cerebellum, firing into the right brain. So I want you to keep that in mind. When you put your right foot in front of your left, the left foot is carrying the brunt of your weight. So you're testing more of the left cerebellum than right. So this gives us a lot of information here to help treat the patient. So we're going to have them close their eyes, and we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Y'all get the point. Yeah. So this is a more difficult test. And then again, they're going to fall to one side typically if you see chronically ill patients, because again, they got blood sugar dysregulation, insulin resistant, inflammation, they've got stenosis. I mean, they've got I wouldn't say a plethora, but they have multiple types of issues that are causing this peripheral nerve to degenerate. All right. Now we're going to put our left foot in front of our right, and then we're going to tell the patient, I'm going to be right in front of you, but you need to hold this position for 15 seconds. And again, when we do this and we hold this, we want to know which side did they fall to. Okay. And then when they fall, what number? 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then they fall. So see, what we can do is, and next week when you come back, we'll go through the rehab. But right now, there's nothing to rehab if you can't find what's wrong with them. If you don't understand the anatomy and physiology, you're just banging bones. You're not, you're not actually testing these patients. And I see this as a fault of a lot of clinicians, is they don't know the neurological pathways and the mechanisms. So the patient's over here trying to tell you what their problem is, and you're like, well, I'm just going to be banging bones anyway, and I'm going to do the blind 7, so I don't really need to listen to you, and I don't really need to do a neurological exam. And see, when you play at this level, from a functional neurology standpoint and functional medicine standpoint, you actually do have to listen to the patient, and you actually do have to do a neurological exam. So again, repeat here: feet together. Standard test position is hands on the hips, feet together, close your eyes, count to 15. They should be able to hold that for 15 seconds. At whichever side they fall to, maybe the delinquent cerebellum, but we have to remember that if we have peripheral neuropathy, we can't feel our feet anyway, so they could fall to either side. Now, and then we put our right foot in front of our left, and we're going to count to 15 seconds, and we're going to figure out where they're falling to, if they fall. All right. And then we're going to take our left foot and put it in front of the right. And as we said earlier, if we stand up on our with our hip flexed on the right, we got more of the weight on I got all of our weight on the left leg, left cerebellum, right brain. So remember that when you do right foot in front of left. The last test we'll do is we will actually, if they make it past that, which very seldom my patients ever make it past 15 seconds on that, we're actually going to have them bring their right leg up and flex it to 90 degrees. And then we want to see if they can hold that for 15 seconds. And if you're wondering, yes, I'm doing that right now. So we want to be able to hold that for 15 seconds. And then we want to do the right leg, and we want to stand on the right leg for 15 seconds as well. So see, these are tests that you need to do on yourself, because see, if you can't do that, that means you have a deficient cerebellum, okay? And one of the things that leads to dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's is decreased mobility, decreased stimulation. You have systems that are failing. And again, all of these systems we went through today are presynaptic to the cerebellum, and the cerebellum is presynaptic to the contralateral brain. So we want to constantly be exercising our brain to release brain-derived neurotrophic factors, to release neurogenesis, which are stem cells in your brain. And yes, if you never heard of this before, you are way behind the times here. So sorry, I don't have a trimmer. I just happened to grab the podium here, and it was shaking a little bit. So yes, the brain does have neural stem cells. It does have brain-derived neurotrophic factors. You do have neuroplasticity, where these neurons can actually regenerate and heal themselves, but it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to do that when a person is malnourished. They don't have adequate hormones. Their blood sugar is dysregulated. They have inflammation. They have autoimmune disorders. They have neurotoxins. They're exposed to environmental toxins, and they have a gluten sensitivity, which everybody on here, you're in complete freaking denial if you think you don't have a gluten sensitivity problem, and more than likely a leaky gut as well, because the gut and the microbiome have a direct pathway and communication to the brain, to the vagus nerve. So again, we have to look at the whole body. Medicine looks at the blinky light, and a lot of chiropractors do as well, but medicine treats diseases, and that's the ultimate blinky light. And I'm a holistic healthcare professional, which means I look at a person from head to toe and I solve problems. So I want to thank y'all for being here tonight. Don't forget that next week we will be going through the rehab on the cerebellum. So what I want you to do from tonight till next week, you don't have to understand it. You just have to do it right now. But we're going to have the patient, and the patient's going to stand in front of you or sit in front of you. I'm going to be the patient, and you're going to say, follow my finger. Okay. And you want to see if they come off the target. Okay. All right. If I come off the target up and to the right, let's see, like that, I got a right anterior canal. If I come off down into the left, I've got a right posterior canal problem. If I bring my finger to my nose and I'm all over the place and I can't find my nose here and I'm hypometric, I've got a right cerebellar problem. If I'm hypometric or a breakdown here, left cerebellar problem. If I miss on the right paper knife on the right, where I'm uncoordinated, right cerebellum, left, right cerebellum, we can take our hands out and say, put your finger on the fingertip to the fingertip. See how your proprioception is doing. I'm sure a lot of you are doing that right now, going, crap, I'm missing all of this. But you got to fix you, okay? And this is the way that I train doctors to be exceptional. The first patient has to be you, because, excuse my French, but your shit's messed up, okay? And you got to fix it, okay? And so, so I want to thank y'all for being here tonight. Let's get you fixed. Let's get the patients fixed. And don't forget that next week we're going to be back for how to rehab this. Make sure you also do your Rumbergs, your tandem Rumbergs, okay? 15 seconds, and then we're going to pick one leg up, and we should be able to hold that for 15 seconds. Thank y'all very much. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Dr. Andy.
Absolutely.